Welcome back to I Hear Good Things, the podcast, a podcast about music. It's 20 degrees. Do you think I should dye my hair? Mail at iheargoodthings.com. I didn't mind when there was a couple of grey hairs, but it's getting a bit silly. Not enjoying getting old in general. Stuck getting ads that are a bit too specific. They assume your age and your weight. One ad I did feel quite seen by was you can get this little motor that you strap on the back of your pants and it blows air up the back of your shirt. I stopped seeing them since the degrees started dropping, but maybe I'll pick up one of those next summer. I feel like my life would have been pretty different if I'd been given one of those 20 years ago and had a nice dry back through all those major milestones. It's also really confronting when you add a public playlist on Apple Music and you see all the profile pics of the other users who've added it, and it's all these old dudes. Anyway, it's more my problem than your problem. What's been happening? I think I've only seen one show since I spoke with you last, which was Fax, post-punk trio from Chicago. Had a great night there with Jack at the bolo. Don't know how a trio from Chicago can just play a bolo and probably another bolo in another town and go home. You might remember Jack from episode 2. I'd love for Jack to be my co-host, but he's a man with responsibilities. His floor's about to fall in or something. He's got to get it reinforced. I don't know. He has things to do. Big episode today. I have a chat with Anthony from Wisteria, band I've been enjoying recently from Adelaide. I'm really networking in Adelaide. Very inconvenient for a Sydney podcast. I'll also be talking today about the future of music, according to Rolling Stone Australia, about AU and NZ acts they believe are the future. I'll see if they are correct. And we'll cross to my Tokyo correspondent to hear about the experience of concert going in Japan. Lots on. First, some new releases. Okay, as always, a very generous definition of new for our new releases. They at least came out this year, I can promise you that. This is not your grandmother's New Music Friday. It can take me a little while to get things. I'm just ordinary men. There's also always a playlist in the show notes with tracks from all the records I'll mention. I'm quite unimpressed with the outside world this week, so nothing from overseas. Apart from this video I saw of Elsa Dwyman, here's a song, If I Die Alone. This is a man, I saw him on YouTube short. He has a horrific skin condition called lamella-ichthyosis. To look at him, you'd think he'd been in makeup for Star Trek for about 7 hours. Don't think he'd mind me saying. He said people often Google his name and before the accident. But it's actually a condition he's had from birth. Very horrible. But a lovely gentleman. I'll put the single he released on the playlist, but you really need to go see the original video of him where he first plays it and it's not produced at all. I think just the initial raw demo is quite amazing. I'll link to that in the show notes. So we'll go straight to New Zealand, and Menzies, Holding My Cold Hand Even Though Yours Is Warm, is the album. This is an album with just so much character. It sounds like real people making slightly weird music together, very much in their own way. There's relatable topics like mashed potato and feeling a certain way about the All Blacks. It's indie rock, but there's a lot of variation of styles mashed together, like the potato. Very cool stuff. Also from New Zealand, Maynard Larkin and the album Rattlesnake Boy. He used to record as Randa, which was more of a mix of hip-hop and rock, but he's made a turn here towards more of a country indie folk sound. It's apparently a concept album about a pro wrestler who's not doing so well. I'll have to study the lyrics further. But I love this album. I listened to it while driving my daughter and a friend's home, and even in that context, that shone through the speakers of my 2010 Toyota Corolla Ascent. Maynard's a very stylish person as well, if you go check out his Instagram. So, to Australia, and 2 blockbuster releases from Genesis Owusu and Eka Vandal. Genesis Owusu, one of the biggest stars in Australia, I'd say. I remember watching the Arias for some perverse reason a few years ago, and they kept crossing to him in LA or somewhere because he won yet another award, and it got more and more awkward the more awards he got. They'd just come back to him and he'd be, thanks for this one too, very honoured, wow, unexpected. I hadn't really gotten to his stuff before. I always wanted him to be a bit wilder and grittier. It's based on his image, but this record is certainly playing to my sensibilities. A lot of indie rock and indie pop mixed in with his hip-hop and R&B. So I dig this one. It's called Red Star Woo and the Worldwide Scourge. But Echo Vandal, hell yes. This album is incredible. My socks were knocked right off. My Hamburglar socks I got last time I went to McDonald's in person. My hair was blown back. This just rips out of the gate, powers through all these rock tracks at the beginning, settles down about halfway through and adds some more sort of R&B, other types of sounds. But the sequencing is perfect. This has gone straight to my top 5 for the year. I think my top 5 currently, we've got The Enthusiast, Hemlock Springs, Megafauna. Who will take the 5th spot? So those are the big name releases. But heading more underground, we've got Sarah Jane and the Noise, Happiness in Rearview, the EP. This is a group city with some classic 90s grunge sounds. Really sounds like it could be from that era, but at the same time doesn't feel like it's a recreation of it. It just feels really authentic. They have an EP launch this Friday, which I would go to if I wasn't seeing Mitski. But I put a link to their show in the show notes. Definitely go along if you like that kind of alternative rock. Tongue Dissolver, their album Mountain Simulator. This is from Melbourne. Pretty wild album that Jack put me onto. It's filed under electronic, but lots of crazy guitars and beats. Reminds me a bit of Lip Critic, if you liked their album from earlier this year. That was a bit too cool for me. Or at a stretch, The Prodigy, maybe. Some of those kind of beats here and there. Cool music for the cools. Ecosia, Eat the Night EP. This is a dance hip-hop sort of artist. Very rock-focused today, after being very singer-songwriter-focused last episode. So this is a bit of an odd one out, but she's awesome. Azalea Banks is probably a point of comparison here. Lots of energy, fun songs, cool person, potential star. Crystallines with the Usurper EP. I mentioned grunge earlier. I think of this as more of the happy-go-lucky side of 90s alt-rock. His voice reminds me of a bunch of different 90s singers. I can't quite pin it down who exactly it reminds me of. There's a bit of Dave Grohl. I feel like there's an obvious singer that I'm missing that it's reminding me of. Anyway, it reminds me of when alt-rock was becoming something a bit more fun, sort of party music in the mid-90s. So if you don't mind your rock being fun, give that one a go. Local the Neighbour with Sword EP. This is a dude from Melbourne who was trained as a jazz drummer, but has pivoted into this kind of Alex G, bedroom, indie pop, indie rock sort of thing. Completely self-recorded and self-produced. Very impressive. Keen to see where this guy goes. Lalu is a 5-piece indie folk band, also from Melbourne. This is their self-titled debut. This is the kind of music I'm enjoying a lot lately. Pretty gentle indie folk with the occasional explosion into rock here and there. I'm really enjoying the wistful Aussie accents lately, which brings me to Mass Wisteria. So a couple of years ago, I heard this band called Dumb Things. They have this real classic Australian sound, and it unlocked something deep inside me and made me realize I have this kind of nostalgic connection to an older Australian sound and era, possibly the 80s. Mass Wisteria's Bandcamp profile says unapologetically sentimental, which I think the sentimentality is the kind of thing I'm responding to. I'm realizing more and more that sentimentality is often what distinguishes music I like from music I don't like. Stuff that I find too cool and sort of icy emotionally, I'm less likely to be into. Sonic Youth comes to mind. I think it goes back to my love of hair metal, Bon Jovi, etc. Anyway, this is a concept I wanted to talk about with Anthony from Mass Wisteria. So here he is. Anthony from Mass Wisteria. Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, you're sitting in Adelaide today?
Yes, I am. I decided to have the day off work today just so I could come and hang out with you. So thanks for the invitation.
Oh, brilliant. So Mass Wisteria is a great name. Was there a long naming process?
I think whenever you're starting up a band, it's one of the probably the longest conversations you'll ever have. It starts funny, and then after maybe 3 months, you're kind of pulling your hair out, trying to figure out what you're going to do. But so I put it to my mates, and I said, starting a band, what should the name be? And one of my friends suggested the Cosmic Fuckwits, and I was like, look, it's really good. But then that same mate was the one who suggested Mass Wisteria, and it just instantly, I loved it. Took the drummer a few months to come around to it, but I bet he's on board with it now.
Months, yeah. It is a fun and long process.
Yeah. No, but yeah, do love the band name, and I love a good or a bad pun anytime.
Yeah, cool. How long have you guys been together as a band?
It started with the drummer and myself. Probably, I think we're in our second year now, but it took us about 6 months to kind of get it together before we could play our first show. So yeah, I say we've been around for about 2 years, doing gigs for a year and a half now.
And you're in some previous bands as well?
So many.
Yeah.
I've been playing music in bands in Adelaide since I was in my 20s, and I'm 40 years old now, so I've been in six bands off the top of my head. So it's been a pretty passionate hobby of mine.
So you've been in Adelaide your whole life?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Sydney. Spent about 7 years there from I don't know, my 5 to 15, and that was interesting. But coming back to Adelaide, it always felt like home, and I don't feel the need to move to Sydney. Beautiful city, but Adelaide's very convenient.
Yeah, for bike riding.
Yeah, very flat. Yeah, very forgiving until you get up into the Adelaide Hills. So.
Yeah. So the thing that really drew me into your music is something that I've been responding to a lot lately, which is a really sort of a sound that I think of as like distinctively Australian in a kind of nostalgic way, almost. Not that the music's like nostalgic or looking backwards, but it takes me to a kind of 80s Australia. Is that something that you think about?
I mean, if it wasn't intentional, it would still be such a huge compliment. It is absolutely what I've always tried to achieve. I don't shy away from showing my accent in my music, and there's the music of the 80s, the Triffids, the starting of the Lucksmiths. They are some of my biggest influences, and I just wanted to be in a band where you put it on and there's just something about it. You can just tell this is Australia. This is a snapshot of Australia, right now, anytime. So thank you for saying it. It's, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, cool. I've been trying to think about bands, like when I think of this sound, what I think of, and the Triffids is the one that comes up for me, but I'm sort of struggling to think what else exactly, that particular influences apart from that.
Definitely Jebediah.
Right.
I remember being a kid and just hearing Kevin's music for the first time, and it was just such a massive brain explosion of how could it be so loud but so catchy and so fun at the same time. So yeah, just all of that early, growing up in the 90s, listening to the Australian bands that would frequent the big day out, just really, that's what I wanted to emulate, and I think that comes across in our sound as well.
Yeah, definitely. I listened to your demos as well. Thanks for sending those.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for listening.
It seems like you've there's more of a range of sound in those, from like almost Bruce Springsteen to like more sort of go-betweens sort of thing. Do you sort of start more disparate like that and sort of hone it into the band kind of sound, or what's the approach?
I think whenever the demos that I have on my SoundCloud, that is the initial, I pick up the guitar, I record it as quickly as possible. That is what it sounds like. And then once you take it to the band, like anything can happen to it. I do think the core of the song is still there, but it is very fun going back and listening to the first demo and then listening to where the band took it. It very often goes somewhere completely different, but still sounds like the same song.
Yeah, that'd be a satisfying process to come out with something.
We try and be collaborative as possible in the room, and everyone gets a say.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering, is your approach sort of start by yourself and then bring it to the band usually? Yeah,
sometimes I'll just have like a riff, or sometimes I'll have a complete song, but I'll be like, does it need 2 choruses? Does it need 3? So we'll jam it out. We'll just figure out what kind of works with it, and The second the bass and the drums get involved, the song just evolves into, didn't hear that at all, but I'm loving where it's going.
That means you got good bandmates then.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. It's funny. The bass player is probably the best guitarist in the band.
Right.
So, yeah, that's something that keeps happening to me. So yeah,
happens to a lot of guitarists too. I think they end up as bass players. So you're part of a little indie label as well, the Howling Beagle Records.
Yeah, it's nothing too serious. It's just a bit of fun. It's kind of just as a way for those specific bands to kind of support each other in the scene. It just makes us look cooler by association to be able to say that. But it's nothing too serious.
Yeah. Is there any sort of process to that? Like, how do you sort of help each other out?
It's pretty funny. They came to a gig of ours and they liked us straight away. And we played with the Mushnicks. That's one of the guys who runs the label. And then a few months went by and we noticed that they were organizing gigs within their label with their label mates. And we just took it upon ourselves to message them and say, hey, can we be on the label? And it would have been a pretty awkward no. So I'm happy they said yes. And they're great guys.
Yeah, cool. Looks like there's about 5. Well, there's the 5 listed on their Instagram at the moment. Got the Beyonce's fiancés.
That is a band you should reach out to. They have very interesting songs. They are intentionally over the top. Yeah, they've just put out a song called 1984, and it is they've nailed the sound. It's massive. I highly recommend you check it out.
Yeah, I did listen to that one actually. I'll put it on the playlist for this episode.
Awesome.
I like the Yarbles as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Tiny Little Grandeur also really, really fun. Really good songwriting.
How do you feel about the sort of Adelaide scene generally? Obviously, you're very content with Adelaide.
Yeah, it's one of those things that always kind of comes up and then it goes down and it comes back up again. I think at the moment there's just so many good bands. And there's so many bands I would want to play with, but we're not quite cool enough. I think one of my favorite Adelaide bands is called Swap Meet, and they've just been signed to a US label. And I don't know, they write music that I've always wanted to write, but I've never been able to. Just it sounds simple, but it's incredibly complex, and the weight of their music is definitely just in this kind of quiet momentum that is just through it. But when they play live, they really rock out.
Yeah, I actually saw them here a couple of weeks
awesome.
ago. They played in this little room in a pub. It was absolutely jam-packed with probably 100 and something.
That's exactly
people.
what I want to hear.
Yeah, sold out. And but I couldn't even see them because they were all sort of on the floor and everyone was taller than the band. So,
but there's definitely been, I mean, in my opinion, because of the kind of music that I like, it just seems like the Adelaide scene is on the way up. There's just so many good bands up and coming. Bands like Pomegranates, the Tullamarines, about to take over the entire world. There's just, it's a very, for how small, not that Adelaide's a small city, but for Adelaide's size, it's incredibly diverse as well.
Yeah. So maybe just to ask about songwriting, because I'm sort of a wannabe songwriter.
It's a good place to be. It's a good hobby.
Yeah. I did it when I was sort of younger and then never sort of went anywhere with it. Is it something you find pretty easy to do? Does it come naturally? Is it something you've worked on your whole life sort of thing?
I think for me, whenever the song writes itself, it's always easy. So they're my favorite songs to play, and you pick up the guitar and within 30 seconds you just know you're kind of onto something, and it's just like you're just pulling on this piece of string, and the string it just keeps going. So yeah, they're the fun ones. But then there are songs where I'll have a verse and I will love the verse and I'll sit on it for 6 months and I'll listen to it and try and come up with, there are those moments where you just know what is the next chord and you just cannot find it. So it's in both senses, it's rewarding to have the songs you develop over a long period of time. It's not as fun as when the songs write themselves, but I really enjoy my process of songwriting. I kind of just let the songs breathe and let them kind of go where they need to go. But I'm always in my head. I'm just always thinking, how do I make this about people and a place? I don't tend to focus on time too much. I just try and focus on these feelings that you kind of have, but you can't really put into words because it's just the big picture, and it's kind of hard to put it into a picture. So that's kind of what I try and focus on in my songwriting.
Yeah, I do find it really hard as well when it doesn't sort of come all at once, because I feel like the more you kind of work on something over a long period, the more you just get more and more sort of self-conscious about, it's sort of just bits and pieces that aren't fitting together, and end up throwing it out.
I think the Beatles put it pretty well when they said, if you can't remember it, it's not worth remembering.
Yeah.
So that's why I record everything, just in case I forget it. How come you stopped songwriting? Just lost the time, or?
Yeah, it was kind of I started when I was a teenager, and I felt like I never grew out of the sort of the teenage approach to it. I never learned how to sort of write as an adult. So to me, it sort of sits in this like immature part of myself that I can't sort of get into as an older person. So and a lot of self-consciousness, I guess, which I'm only just starting to get over regarding creative stuff.
Yeah. The best way to get over your self-consciousness is to play the worst song you've ever written in front of a room in a room full of people, and halfway through the song you're like, wow, this is a bad one.
Yeah, I'm really trying to lean into like, you just have to do it and fail.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I'm very much like, if I can't get it right the first time, I'm not going to do it at all.
Oh, yeah. No, I could. You have to keep banging away, with a hammer till it at least looks like, I don't know, maybe a smaller rock or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about having bandmates, though, because you can bring something terrible, and with the bass and drums and another guitar, it immediately sounds a lot better.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I haven't really found the right sort of collaborators for it. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully talking to more musicians get me more excited about
good.
it.
No, it did. Never stop. That's what anyone who has a creative bone in their body, just, never stop.
What's your plan for it? Just to keep writing songs, keep doing music on the side sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's the world's best hobby. I've been doing it for 20 years. It's one of those things where if you were to ask me as a 20-year-old, would I still be doing it? I'd say, nah, I'll grow out of it. But the opposite thing has happened where, in a weird way, I'm kind of growing into it.
Yeah.
And I'm just, for the first time in a very long time, I can write something and I'd be like, oh, you know what? That's catchy. That's really fun. I'm proud of that. That's a good nugget. And I'm just really happy that, with songwriting, if you do it in your room, no one hears it apart from you, and that's totally fine. But to share these ideas that I have in my head, to just people who live in Adelaide, it feels like a very special thing. And I really, as I get older, I appreciate it so much more, and I'm so happy I get to keep doing it.
Yeah, well, I really like it, so keep doing it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, anything you'd like to plug besides the EP at the moment?
No, I just want to give a shout out to my mate Joey. I told him I was doing this afternoon. He kept asking for a shout out. So Joey, this one's to you, mate. Get back to work. We've got 2 gigs coming up in June on the 5th and the 14th. But just please follow us on our social media. We put out our EP. That felt great to get out, the first one, just because some of those songs have been around for a while. Some of them are quite new, but the next EP will be all new stuff, and they're songs that we're very, very proud of, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it, because I'm sure you've heard some of the demos on the SoundCloud, and they're really, really fun, really, really honest songs. So yeah, I can't wait to share them with everyone.
Well, I'll put a link to your shows and your Instagram and that in the show notes for everyone. So yeah, all the best with it, and thanks very much for talking to me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
So every year, Rolling Stone Australia puts out a list called The Future of Music, where they list a bunch of artists from Australia, New Zealand, who they believe are, as they say, ready for the global stage. I'm trying to work out what I think of that concept. In one sense, they are on the global stage because they're on the globe as much as anyone else. I know we have this idea that you sort of have to escape Australia and make it big out there. Our bands have been doing this since the 60s, the Easy Beats, the Bee Gees. But I don't know, are things really the same now? If you're the kind of person who pays attention to music, you're probably listening to artists from all over the place. And it's more interesting if they're from a weird little country like this, if anything. And obviously, internet virality, playlisting, doesn't really matter where you're from. I know touring relentlessly in other countries is going to make a difference if you can manage that. But I do think about this interview a lot. I can't remember who it was, but they were saying people had said to them, you can't survive as a musician in the UK. You got to go to America. Oh, no, you can't go to just any city. You have to go to LA. Oh, LA is dead now, etc., etc. Anyway, I'm not inside the music industry, so probably talking out of my bottom, but let's have a look through this list and see who they think is ready to break out. I don't want to be mean or place a curse on any of these artists with my powerful podcast, but I'll offer a bit of a yay or nay on these. You can check out the ones that I can stomach on the episode playlist. So we start with Baloo Brigada from Auckland, named after Baloo from the Bare Necessities song. They changed the spelling to avoid issues. I like the album they put out most recently. It's so close to a style that I can't stand that is quite popular in Australia. But there's something about this one. I like the songs. There's little sound effects, production tricks that make it more interesting to me. It's just on that razor's edge of awful, but on the correct side. So I like it. Can they make it? I don't see why not. They've supported 21 Pilots, which unfortunately is a good pairing, but I do think they transcend what you might expect based on that knowledge. I think they're much better than 21 Pilots. Next is Borderline, also from Auckland. This is the kind of thing a music exec would absolutely love. It's essentially Maroon 5. I cannot with this one. So I'll move on to Boy Soda from Sydney. I'd never heard of this guy, but this is really sophisticated sort of pop R&B. Reminds me a lot of Frank Ocean's Channel Orange. It's really well done, really professional sounding, great arrangements. Not something I'd go back to myself. I think for the question of making it overseas, if you're making a kind of music that does exist elsewhere, I think you've really got to bring something different for someone in America, say, to reach for that rather than their own country's music. So, I don't know. Very talented person, and the quality's certainly there. Next is Bumpy from Melbourne. She's great. Neo-soul singer. No reason why she couldn't make it overseas. She brings the sort of First Nations cultural side to it, which could help us stand out. So I think it's just a matter of can she get the cut-through song that would put her on the map. Hope she does make it. She's really good. Cat and Calmel are a pop duo from Sydney. I was kind of expecting this to be awful, but it's not bad. Good pop songs. No reason why they couldn't make it. This is the kind of thing that's popular everywhere. Right kind of production, the right song. They can definitely do it. Dick Move is a band from Auckland. This is great, actually. Really fun, rough punk music. Lots to say. I can see this getting traction elsewhere because it has a really distinct quality to the vocals. I think punk music from outside of America often does well because we have rougher accents over here in the UK, which suits the style. Earth Tongue are another one from New Zealand originally. I think they're in LA now. Ty Segall worked on their album, which makes sense. It's kind of a sludgier, more psychedelic sound, heavy. Don't know that they're doing anything terribly different, but again, this kind of music does well everywhere. A lot of artists in this lane are pretty prolific and people keep eating it up, so sure. Folk Bitch Trio from Melbourne. These guys have been getting traction and touring in America. I've tried listening to them quite a few times. It always leaves me cold. Their harmonies are really nice altogether, but I feel like none of them has a particularly pleasing voice on their own. I'd rather put on something like Nico Case or First Aid Kit. I think they will do well. Probably need some better songs to push them over the edge. Geneva AM from New Zealand. It's a really interesting one. She's got a good mix of styles: electro, pop, rock, some classical. There's Maori vocals, choral vocals. Christina Anu's classic styling up is an obvious point of comparison. Production's really great, but her voice is not quite there for me. She's a good singer, technically, but I don't know if it's the way it's mixed. Her voice is a bit too far in the background or something. There's just something not quite there with her tone. Kind of sounds like the Before sound when they advertise vocal plugins on Instagram. Maybe this is just what everyone sounds like when they haven't turned on the plugin. So, I don't know, maybe turn on the plugin. A lot of potential. Headsend from Byron Bay. Hell, yep, great rock band. Their producers worked on a lot of the big 90s grunge bands, so very much my House of Wheels. I like their EP. Inertia from Sydney. I'm not a metalcore fan by any stretch, so this just kind of sounds like any other kind of band like this to me. Someone else can tell me if it's good. Australia's really become the home for this kind of music, so see what happens to them, I guess. Kelly Holiday, a ridiculous person. He's dating Abby Chatfield, another ridiculous person. Can't imagine anyone who enjoys his old group Peking Duck would listen to this podcast, but his big song is Dancing 2. I actually don't hate that one, but it's very much just All My Friends by LCD Sound System, is it not? Everything else on his latest record is god-awful. And I like The Dare. Moving on to Luca George from New Zealand. Another big no from me. Nothing makes me feel more heterosexual than listening to this kind of Ed Sheeran soppy thing. Do not want. All the best. Memphis LK from Melbourne is dance pop, quite basic to my ears. Don't really understand why this one's been selected. I still like a lot of the basic techno songs from my youth, so I suppose other people should be allowed to as well. Cute vocals, I suppose. Mausatui, also from Melbourne. They're a big group numerically, about 10 people. This should be extremely my thing. It's kind of 2005 era indie, a little bit freak folk. I do not like this. I don't know why exactly. They've supported Black Country New Road, so I think it's more like the 2005 indie for the kids today, which somehow just grates in a way that the same music of my time probably grated on other people of a different generation. I don't know. Maruki from New Zealand. Another no from me. This is what I imagine Jack Johnson sounds like. I just can't do this kind of thing. Reggae on the beach type stuff. Not my scene, as you might imagine. Pearly asterisk. That's Pearly with an asterisk after it. From Dunedin. Another one where I'm not sure what they're seeing here exactly. Didn't do much for me on the train on my ride to work. Maybe lying on the floor in the dark with it super loud would be different. I should try that maybe. One thing, the article mentioned some other bands from the Dunedin scene. Their names were interesting. There's Dale Kerrigan, excellent name. Vagina Dry, memorable name. And then Ivy. How are you calling a band Ivy in 2026? I checked on Apple Music. There's more than 60 artists called Ivy before I stopped counting. Naming is so important. We can't be settling for things like that. Radio Free Alice. They formed in Sydney, moved to Melbourne. Saw them support Geese a few months ago. Found them pretty boring, almost annoying. I like one or two of their songs on record, but this is pretty derivative post-punk to my ears. Red, full stop. Double D, all capitals, from Melbourne. This is a guy with some similarities to Genesis Owusu, I guess, in terms of mix of styles, rock and rap, etc. Bit too silly for me. Didn't like it. Renzo from New Zealand. I famously don't listen to much hip-hop, so again, can't really say if this is good or bad, but not for me. Shady Nasty, they're a trio from Sydney. Very cool mix of rap and pretty low-key, sort of slightly atmospheric, downbeat rock instrumentation. I think they could get a following overseas for sure. The kind of person who likes, I don't know, Slayford Mods or even Armin Dunes, something like that. Yeah, they can do it. Thea is a project of M. Haley Walker. She's a Maori artist, now based in LA. Her album from last year, Girl in a Savage World, is this really theatrical, vocal forward piece. Lots of rage about colonial violence, really urgent. Again, variety of styles, some hip-hop, some rock, some folk. Really intense to listen to. Is she ready for the global stage? I sort of find it hard to see people outside of this corner of the world getting into it. But it's very good. Hope they do. There's a Tuesday, band from Christchurch. This is the complete opposite in intensity. Really dreamy indie pop, quite nice. Could see overseas audiences being into this. Not a million miles from something like Men I Trust. Vera Ellen, singer-songwriter from New Zealand. I've tried several times with her music, but I just don't get anything from it. Doesn't connect for me. Not sure why. Plenty of people do. And lastly, Way Dynamic. This is a guy in the Mac DeMarco vein, I guess. He has a couple of cool songs like Miffed It. I'll put that on the list. One or two other good songs. The rest I found pretty boring. I think he'll do all right overseas. People like this kind of thing. I think he's already building up a bit of a following. Well, that's the list. How do we feel about it? I think it's a decent list in the sense that, yes, these people are ready for the big time, as it were. Don't think anyone here needs more time in the oven. Do I like them? It's about 50-50. Do I think they'll find a large global audience? Maybe a couple of them. I think Folk Bitch Trio will. Kelly Holiday, unfortunately. Dick Move, I feel, could definitely get a following. Balu Brigada, maybe. They have a very polished sound and they're adjacent to the kind of big rock acts that nobody likes. As I said, I like them. Don't come for me. Masatui, I mean, Black Country and New Road has a huge audience with young people. I can see the same kind of people getting into this. I think for those of us who lived through 2000s indie, this is not bringing something different at this stage, but maybe they will in the future. Who would I add, you're asking? So many. My beloved Megafauna. Asha Jeffries, I think, with the right packaging. I really like her. I think I just want her to do her own thing, but I could see people might want to mold her into something that could be shipped. Carla Geneve, I don't know if she's ever got much traction outside of Australia. She's not a new artist by any means, but fits in really well with the Waxahachis of the world. No reason why she couldn't be as big. Craning is this pretty extreme alternative rock band I found this week. Not unlike the coolest music overseas. Can see something happening there. El Shamada from episode 1. Absolutely. Sunset Daisy from Adelaide. Anna Jevons mentioned them last week, and I was really impressed with their EPs. They're absolutely of the quality of shoegaze anywhere else in the world, I reckon. Tame Impala, just jokes. Who would you add? Mail at iheargoodthings.com. All right, I'm here with my Tokyo correspondent, Luke, friend of the show, perhaps the ultimate friend of the show. I think he's got the most mentions. Luke, how many degrees is it today in Tokyo?
First, can I say it's an honor to be on Australia's most whimsical indie music podcast. Here in Tokyo, it's currently 15 degrees, which is unseasonal. And there are some days in a kind of seasonal transitional period where you just feel like you're existing in a cloud. And today is one of those days, just living in a dark, grey, damp cloud.
Sounds lovely. Doesn't Japan have like 55 defined seasons or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you ask. I don't know if it's 60 or 70, sort of more than one a week in some sense. But they take the seasons very, very seriously here. And in between summer and winter, you get some variety. But then summer and winter, every day is exactly the same.
So I wanted to get your cultural input on concerts in Japan. You've been to a few. Recently you went to the Deftones, not the Deftones, sorry. Deftones, no article. Can you tell me about the Japanese experience of Deftones?
Sure. So things are a bit different here, like they often are, but, I should add plenty of disclaimers when generalizing about a country or a culture. But yeah, so going to the Deftones or Deftones Sans article is a typical international act playing an arena show kind of experience. And I mean, starting from the ticketing side of things, if there's a popular show, everything's generally lottery based. So there isn't kind of dynamic pricing or the mad rush to click to try and get a ticket. So that's good and bad. Good in that it's reasonably fair as things can be. Bad in that sometimes you might really want to see a show and just not be able to, no matter what happens. Or you can't necessarily plan when that show will be until you know whether you've got a ticket or not. But once you've succeeded in the lottery, you're told you have a ticket, then comes the fun experience of actually paying for that ticket. And in this case, again, a popular show. So I had to firstly subscribe to a monthly subscription to get into the pre-sale through one provider that let me apply for the lottery in the next provider. Then when I won that lottery, I thought, okay, great. I will select the e-ticket to buy my ticket. And selecting an e-ticket might suggest that you could pay online. But that's where you'd be sadly mistaken, because selecting an e-ticket then required you to go to Konbini, the convenience store, to pay in person for your e-ticket that then gets delivered electronically through a particular app that you can then finally use to enter the show. So yeah, from the start, it's a bit of a different experience.
How far out does this happen? Like, how much time do you get to plan?
Reasonably long. So it had been, I don't know, a few months, I guess. And, the band and international acts on their touring schedule. So it has to fit with that. And obviously this is just the case of a big act that's very popular. There's, loads of small shows, loads of indie shows at these little live houses around where it's a much more a DIY kind of feel, but that has its own rules and approach too. But in terms of this Deftones show, so one of the other sort of unique aspects of it is the big show starts at 7 p.m. and there's no support. So you get there, you sit down, starts, no delays. Maybe the show started at 7:03 or something like that. It's on a week, and then you're in and out, and the show's an hour and a half, and that's the experience. It's very convenient, very sensible, and for the middle-aged music fan, I'd say it's kind of ideal.
Is everyone sitting down, or is there a pit?
There was a pit. I was up in the sensible seats, but yeah, there was a large general admission area. And the other interesting aspect of seeing shows in Japan is, of course, the politeness. And everybody is very focused on the show. And I think the biggest difference from seeing shows in Australia, perhaps that stands out to me, is the no dickheads aspect. And I feel like that is the biggest kind of breath of fresh air, in that it's focused on the show. They're not really moving. They're not going backwards and forwards, getting drinks, kind of get whatever drinks you want ahead of the the show before it, starts at 7 p.m. And maybe it's like the lack of kind of drinking through support acts or whatever, where people aren't too hammered or anything when the main act comes on. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing, depending on your, preferences or how you like to enjoy live music. But it makes for a very considered and respectful experience in that sense, where you just get to focus on the music and you're not worried about people pushing past you if you're standing or in and out of seats to pass drinks around or anything like that. And the Deftones show in particular, I was seated maybe 7 rows from the front of this section. I had a great view. The row in front of me had a couple with a Western guy there, and a very Japanese guy on his left. And this guy was, let's say, like maybe mid to late 50s, very like gray hair, wearing a very smart kind of white polo shirt and slacks, into the music, like loving the show, but kind of maybe a bit more of an old school guy. And there was a group of 4 younger people who were international, I think. And during one song in the show, all 4 of them, for whatever reason, decided they needed to go out, and if they wanted to get drinks or whatever. And so they sort of pushed past this guy and the people in front of me. They went out for a little while, but not very long. I don't know if they saw the queues were too long for food or whatever, or drinks, and then came back and sort of, again, like during a song, walked in front of this guy. And this guy was just completely perplexed with what they were doing. Like, why would you interrupt my enjoyment of the show? So much so that when this group walked past him, he wagged his finger at them, which was, yes, any kind of visible confrontation is unexpected. And the Western guy in front of me had to sort of pat him on the shoulder and say, it's all right, like, let's get back to the show kind of thing, because it's so upset, so disrespected by these people who had walked in front of him. But yeah, that's the kind of experience you get.
So we went to Caribou when I was over there with you.
Yeah, we did.
And that was, I guess, is that a medium-sized show?
Yeah,
people standing politely.
Yeah, that was kind of typical. That was in Shibuya, kind of mixed international audience, but fairly reflective of that kind of experience. And while everyone's like very respectful, like they're having a great time, I don't want to make people paranoid about following the rules or upsetting anyone, because I know I laid on the rules pretty thick for you, and you were a little paranoid when you came to Tokyo.
Just walking down the subway, trying to just be as far as possible from anyone, and trying not to smell like anything in particular.
The classic rules, yeah. No strong smells, and no throwing elbows or barging through. So.
Yeah. Just for comparison, what's one of the smaller shows you've been to? Perhaps a more adorable show.
Been to some smaller, like, electronic shows, like seeing Chiasmos, which is just a small room and a guy who's kind of running the thing. Just, I think he's like the guy on the door, and it's a small crowd that's just very chilled and there to take it in. But some of the slightly bigger kind of club shows for the kind of J-rock acts have been interesting too, and saw a band called The Sixth Lie at one club show, where it really made me wonder if whatever fire regulations there were about crowds in like basement venues were not particularly being inclined to be followed. And then there's like one very narrow staircase out of there. So it was a great show, apart from, the subtle feeling of fear that if something, went wrong, it'd be a horrible stampede. But otherwise, a lot of fun. For me personally, there's always a bit of a difficulty in that I'm like not unusual in Australia, but on the taller side. And when you're at a show in Japan as a taller white guy that's trying to be as inconspicuous as possible, it makes it a little bit awkward. So that's always a bit of a challenge. And particularly if my wife, who wants to get out the front so she can see, drags me with her up there, I find myself kind of crouching over, feeling very apologetic, considering how much the culture is based around respect, where I'm getting in front of people. So I'm actually going to a festival on Sunday, actually, and I was thinking I really need a hat with just, "I'm sorry for my head" or something written on the back in Japanese, maybe. I think that would be a way to communicate my feelings.
Yeah, like that sorry uniform that Midnight Oil wore at the Sydney Olympics. Well, thank you again for joining me. I'll cross back to you for future reports.
I look forward to reporting on any faux pas I manage to pull off in the months ahead.
A quick watch where I talk about something I watched. I watched this Australian film from 1986, Dogs in Space. Whatever you're imagining, it's not that. It's set in late 70s Melbourne. And if you've ever thought, man, I wish I could have lived through that post-punk era when everything was so cool, well, not anymore after watching this. The movie's kind of interesting and boring at the same time. There's no real story. It just sort of follows characters coming in and out of this share house with just the worst people living in it. There's Michael Hutchence. His girlfriend's played by Saskia Post. It's called Dogs in Space because that's his band, but if you'd asked me if he was in a band after watching this, I couldn't have told you. I'm not sure if that was a plot point, maybe. It's really well done in the sense that it just puts you viscerally in this place that you absolutely don't want to be in. And they don't really explain anything. There's just this girl who comes and sits on the front steps and now she just lives there. The other characters don't even ask who she is or what she's doing there. There's a guy with a chainsaw, guy trying to study for his uni exams. Don't know that I'd really recommend this to anyone unless you're really interested in that period. I watched it because I've been reading this book, Stranded, Australian Independent Music 1976 to 1992 by Clinton Walker. Might talk about that in a future book look. Anyway, Dogs in Space. Watch it if you want to feel better about your living conditions. Well, this has been a big episode. There's a lot of work. This is why people start Patreons, I suppose. I won't do that, but why not rate it 5 stars on something? Tell your friends. Check out the bumper playlist for this episode, over 2 hours of music. Let me know if I should dye my hair. Shout out to Joey if you made it this far. And I'll see you all next time.